The coronavirus pandemic really altered our world in a lot of obvious ways for a lot of obvious reasons. It showed us what we can do, what we can do without, and focused our attention on some things like never before, like toward education. The changes in academics for students through COVID saw parents, students, administrators, and teachers launch into, you could call them major discussions on what goes on inside a classroom. It's a touchstone for many. Transparency and communication between schools and families, those are crucial to success. And it's the spirit of that idea that prompted Idaho's top education leader to draft legislation called the Parental Bill of Rights. Superintendent Debbie Critchfield sat down to discuss this bill with Joe Paris.
When education's been in the news lately, it seems to be a theme of controversy. But to help address some of those concerns, Idaho's new Superintendent of Public Instruction, Debbie Critchfield, she's sending a strong message on the relationship between schools and families with this new legislation.
I want to take the politics out of being a parent. And that's what we've heard from parents around the state. They want to be a part of the process. Schools want to partner with parents. And if we can remove any of the barriers or just kind of that stigma of parents versus schools or teachers, the better off we are.
House Bill 163, referred to as a Parental Bill of Rights, aims to encourage transparent communication between parents and schools about what's going on during a school day.
We spend a lot of time communicating with parents, districts and teachers do, hey, sign this permission slip. We want to take your first grader to the pumpkin patch. Or parent-teacher conferences are coming up, or even some fun things that say, don't forget to tell your kids it's Crazy Sock Friday, or whatever it is. Let's not leave that outside of just that. And we want to include other very important, sensitive topics, that if there is a survey, a non-academic survey, let the parents know. Make the survey available and allow parents the opportunity to decide whether or not their child participates. What it doesn't do is limit local decision making. So a local board can still decide to do the things that they want to do, whether it's a survey or having outside industries or entities come to support school services. Let parents know.
The bill touches on things like communicating with parents if a student is showing signs of being troubled, or letting families know about the health services and the options they have at a school. Or even if a school resource officer has to question a student on something, parents will be notified. The key here, according to stakeholders, let parents know what's happening in school so they can be in the loop.
Parents are the primary and main factor in the success of their child. And I think about it as kind of a stool with three legs. You have the parent who's the expert on their child, and you have the teacher who's the expert about education. And then when you add a child who's then responsible for their own learning, that's a perfect recipe for academic and emotional success. And when you've cut off one of those places, or if the parent feels like they're outside of that system or limited or shut down, then that's imbalanced. And really we want to restore that balance again. And I think taking the tension out of it, we're talking about parents and we're talking about students, and it's become so politicized that I'm hoping that we can really right-size this and restore that.
Critchfield says the concept for this Parental Bill of Rights is rooted in her campaign for the superintendent office. She heard a lot from Idahoans on the campaign trail about communication with schools, so she came up with a list of 10 things that she believes parents are entitled to.
And I would share that at different events, and I was so surprised but also encouraged as parents would come up and say, you know, thank you. I didn't know that I could go and sit down and have a conversation with my teacher and say, I have concerns about, you know, this of what was said, or my child brought home something that I don't think was appropriate, and a bunch of other things, especially consent. I think that that's a big topic. I'm not a fan of implied consent. Me not telling you no does not mean I told you yes as a parent. And how do we open up these lines of communications? And how do we talk about this with our parents is really the theme in this legislation.
Critchfield says she knows schools across Idaho do a great job with communication. This, however, just puts a baseline of expectations in Idaho code.
We want to ensure that there's some uniformity. We've got most of our school districts do a fantastic job, if not everyone trying to do a fantastic job in communicating you know, what's happening in the school. But for districts maybe who are unsure about how to go about this provides that level of confidence that regardless of where you are in Idaho, here is a bare minimum expectation as a parent.
So, Brian, the bill passed unanimously out of the House Education Committee earlier today, so it now heads to the full House of Representatives. And to be very clear here, this Parental Bill of Rights, which we'll link at ktvb.com with this article later, it doesn't tell school districts to go do X, Y, and Z. And Critchfield says, to be clear, she's very big on local control and local decision making in terms of education. Really what this does is it sets a baseline of understanding between Idaho parents and Idaho schools, saying you need to talk, you need to communicate. I think there's a lot of things, for example, that we've talked about on this show over the last few years where if someone would have made some phone calls or someone would have reached out, it might not have escalated to a community-wide crisis.
Well, see, that's surprising me. Maybe I'm spoiled with teachers my kids have had over the years, but to hear her say that she had parents come up and say, I didn't know I can go talk to my teacher?
Yeah.
That's shocking to me because it is. It's just an email, a phone call, knock on the door at the end of the school day. It seems like it should be that simple.
Communication is the #1 tool to success in every single job field, so there you go.
All right.